the audience that you have to understand that this is very big for my family to have an opportunity to speak at a university. I came from a very rough beginning, and I dropped out of high school when I was 17. Fathered a child when I was 17, and my mother was one of those old church mothers, and she said that if you're not going to get married, you need to go get a job. And she adopted me when I was 4, and she was 64 years old, and she had a 4th grade education, and she was a widow. Her husband died when I was 2. He died of cancer, and so she raised me on a Social Security check, and we used to recycle old newspapers and beer cans to pay for my music lessons. We would ask the neighbors to save their newspapers and save their cans, and we would recycle them, and that's how we paid for my music lessons. That's how we paid for my clothes. We would stand in line and get the big block of government cheese, and I don't know if you guys remember that, but those were the best grilled cheese sandwiches ever. And those were rough times, but what she did, this lady had a great passion for Jesus, and she taught me just by her lifestyle what a Christian looks like in the home. So I told everyone last night that I'm not the most eloquent dude, and I'm not the most educated dude, and I'm not going to impress you with fancy words and just all these big skills, because I don't have that. But what I have is I have a sincere heart, and I'm a very passionate person about what I believe in and who I believe in, and a desire to really try to help people and try to encourage people with my story. And with this Martin Luther King holiday celebration that we've had over the last several days, there's somebody that I want to tell you a story about. I didn't get a chance to say this last night. I'm going to try to bob and weave a little bit last night at some of the things I shared last night, and just share some extra things and try to see if we can bring it together. I have a sister, and a lot of people don't know that I have a sister. We have the same mother, but we have different fathers. And when I was adopted, when my mother decided, I was 13 years old, and I heard my biological mother, because the woman that adopted me, she biologically is my great aunt. And so when my mother's mother died, she helped also raise my mother. And so that's why it was easy for her to take me on when my mother was a teenage mother and she was pregnant and she really didn't want to be a mother at the time. So I was 13 years old, and I heard my biological mother tell my adopted mother, they were having an argument in the other room, and I heard her tell her that I never wanted to have a child, but you wouldn't allow me to have an abortion. And I wanted to abort the baby, but you wouldn't let me, so I didn't even want a child. And can you imagine being 13 years old and hearing in another room that your mother didn't even want you, and she wanted to have an abortion? When I look at the culture, and when I look at the music industry, and when I look at young children on the streets and on the corner with their pants sagging, and when I look at our women in music videos and in entertainment, I see a picture of free slaves. Because we're free, but in our experiences, we're still maneuvering and still acting and still going about our business as people that do not have the wisdom and the understanding that we're no longer in chains and in bondage anymore, that there have been sacrifices made. And so we don't have access to that freedom and to that opportunity. And so I call it the mind of a modern day slave. And it's unfortunate that we are now writing songs and doing music that is still having our people living and acting like people that are still in bondage. And it is so unfortunate to watch young African Americans, and now even into the suburbs, that now we are willing to take lives and choose lifestyles that are taking us back and back and back, instead of using the opportunities to become better, because now we have that opportunity. And he makes everyone else in the race have to run harder. My father made me have to run harder. His father's father had to make him run harder, because you did not run your your race well. And I'm encouraging everyone in here right now, remember that you're not running for yourself, but you're running for those that are coming behind you. And no matter what happened to you in your past, it's very important to remember that you cannot run your race bitter. You get distracted when you run your race bitter. I could have been frustrated, and I could make many excuses for not being a good father because I didn't have one. I could make many excuses for not being a good husband because I didn't see one. I can make many excuses about the black community, and I can be like all of my other brothers at the barbershop and blame the man. Who is the man? Yes, there are changes that need to be made. There are more people that need to be sensitive to the communities around them. But I cannot make excuses and run my race well, because I have to understand that what makes it hard for me also makes me stronger. When you're in the gym, when you're working out, you have a trainer and he's training you and he has you lifting weights, and he's standing behind you, and he's saying, okay, you ready? Lift, lift. And you're lifting the weights, and you're saying, wait a minute, this is too heavy, this is too heavy. He's saying, lift, I've got you. Lift, lift. And he's like, no, this is too heavy. You don't understand. My arms and my elbows are telling me this is too heavy. And your trainer's behind you saying, lift these weights because I've been watching you, and I've been examining you, and I've been training you for a while, and I know how much you can handle. I know how much you can handle, and I know how much you can lift, because you have to be able to trust that the person that is behind you has your back. You have to believe that God will never put more on you than you can bear. And it's very important that those of you that are our coaches, you have to remember that we're watching every move that you make. It is very important to realize that being a role model is not an option. When you have the microphone, you have the responsibility. When you have the platform, you have the responsibility to understand that you cannot choose how I look upon you to speak into my life. You have to make a decision before you take that platform, that will I choose to live a lifestyle and live a life that will help encourage these young people become better and be better, because we need role models that are willing to make the sacrifices and allow us to not only learn from your good, but to also learn from your bad, so that we won't continue to make the same mistakes. Sometimes I know as people of color during this Martin Luther King celebration, sometimes we've gone through a lot of pain in our lives. And sometimes you want to look up to God and look up to heaven and say, Father, the pain is so painful. Why won't you make it stop? But when you look at our great leaders that have come through severe pain, you saw that the pain was necessary for them to become better. A lot of pain we have gone through, and we're still going through a lot of pain as people. And there's so many people of many different colors that stood with us and marched with us and encouraged us and are still with us now, fighting the good fight with us. It's not just a black fight anymore. It's our fight. It's everyone's fight. And sometimes you wonder, will the pain stop? Sometimes you even look at those running for office and you wonder, when will the pain stop? Now you guys know I had to say something. I just said. But people of this great institution of higher learning, those of you that have come just to hear me say a few words, I want to let you know that we all have to do our part in making the pain stop. And we all have to do our part in discontinuing this modern day slave mentality. We have a power and responsibility to stop buying the music that's degrading our women. We have the power and the responsibility of stop supporting churches that are building bigger houses but are not concerned about the crack house that is adjacent to the church. We have the power to say no to the foolishness that is still going on in our own urban communities and say that we will not continue to make excuses. We all can make a difference in stopping the modern day slave mentality.